There is a man sitting in his car right now, engine off, lights out, phone in his hand, but he is not texting anyone. He is not listening to music. He is not even thinking about where to go next. He is just sitting there, delaying the moment he has to walk into his own house. From the outside, his life looks complete. He is married. He has responsibilities. He has built something. But inside, something has gone silent. Something has gone missing. And the most dangerous part is, no one notices, because society taught him that loneliness belongs to single men. Society taught him that marriage is the cure, but what no one tells you is this truth. The loneliest men are not the ones who sleep alone. The loneliest men are the ones who sleep beside someone who no longer sees them. There was a time when he was different, a time when his presence mattered, a time when his words carried weight. He remembers when she used to look at him with curiosity, with admiration, with warmth. He remembers when he was not just useful but desired. Back then he was not invisible, he was not predictable, he was not replaceable. He was a man with direction, with mystery, with fire. But slowly, quietly, without announcement, something changed. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually. The conversations became shorter. The respect became conditional. The warmth became transactional, and he did not even realize when he stopped being loved for who he was and started being valued only for what he provided. This is the silent transformation that happens to millions of men, not because they are weak, not because they failed, but because they were never told the truth about what happens after commitment. They were never told that love without respect becomes obligation. They were never told that familiarity slowly erodes admiration. They were never told that the role of provider, protector, and stabilizer comes with a hidden cost, the cost of emotional invisibility. Because once he becomes the foundation, people stop noticing the foundation. They only notice when it cracks. He wakes up early, he works, he solves problems, he carries burdens no one else can carry, he absorbs stress so others can feel safe, he sacrifices parts of himself quietly. And in return, he expects very little, not praise, not applause, just acknowledgement, just presence, just the feeling that he still matters beyond his function. But what he often receives instead is criticism without appreciation, expectations without gratitude, presence without connection. And this creates a loneliness far deeper than physical isolation, because physical isolation can be solved by proximity. But emotional isolation cannot be solved by proximity. Emotional isolation happens when someone is physically beside you but psychologically absent. This is the paradox of the married man's loneliness. He is never alone, yet he feels completely alone. He cannot talk about it because who would understand? Society tells him he is lucky. Society tells him he has everything. Society tells him this is what success looks like, so he stays silent, he carries it quietly, he convinces himself this is normal, he tells himself this is what being a man means. Endure, provide, stay steady, do not complain, do not break, do not need. But inside something begins to erode, not loudly, not visibly, but deeply. His energy changes, his posture changes, his presence changes, he becomes quieter. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he knows it will not be heard. He becomes emotionally distant, not because he does not care, but because he has learned that caring without reciprocity leads to exhaustion. He becomes less expressive. Not because he feels less, but because he has learned that vulnerability without safety becomes weakness in the eyes of others. This is where many men begin to disappear psychologically long before they disappear physically. They are still there, they still show up, they still fulfill their duties, but the man they used to be, the man with fire, with curiosity, with emotional openness, begins to fade. And no one notices, because everyone is benefiting from his stability. No one questions the emotional cost of being the pillar, because pillars do not speak, pillars do not break. Pillars simply hold everything up until they collapse silently. What makes this loneliness even more dangerous is that it is invisible. A single man knows he is alone. He can see it. He can feel it clearly. His loneliness has shape. His loneliness has definition, but a married man's loneliness is shapeless. It hides behind routine. It hides behind responsibility. It hides behind normalcy. He cannot point to it directly. He can only feel its weight, a constant quiet emptiness that follows him everywhere, at work, at home, even in moments that are supposed to feel meaningful. He begins to question himself. Maybe this is just adulthood. Maybe this is just life. Maybe passion is temporary. Maybe connection always fades. Maybe this is what everyone experiences but never talks about. And so he adjusts. He lowers his expectations. He stops asking for emotional connection. He stops expressing his deeper thoughts. He becomes functional instead of alive. But here is the truth most men are never told. Loneliness is not the absence of people. Loneliness is the absence of recognition. It is the absence of being seen. It is the absence of being understood. A man can sit in a crowded room and feel completely alone if no one truly sees him. And a man can sit alone in silence and feel complete if he feels understood and connected to himself. The married man's loneliness often begins the moment he stops being seen as a man and starts being seen only as a role. The provider, the problem solver, the stabilizer, the predictable constant. But men are not machines. Men are not emotionless structures. They have inner worlds. They have fears. They have doubts. They have emotional needs they were never taught to express. And when those needs remain unmet for long enough, something begins to shut down internally. He becomes numb, not broken, not weak, just numb. He laughs less. He feels less excitement. He stops dreaming about possibilities. He focuses only on survival, only on maintaining stability, only on fulfilling expectations. And this numbness protects him. It allows him to continue functioning, but it also disconnects him from himself. This is why many married men feel more alive when they are alone, not because they want isolation, but because isolation allows them to reconnect with themselves. It allows them to exist without expectations, without criticism, without performance, just existing as themselves. And in those moments, they remember who they used to be. This realization can be both liberating and terrifying, because it forces him to confront a truth he has been avoiding, that he did not lose himself suddenly. He lost himself gradually. Through small compromises, through silent endurance, through prioritizing stability over authenticity, through choosing peace over truth, through choosing responsibility over self-expression. And this is not about blaming anyone. This is about understanding the psychological reality of masculine loneliness inside modern relationships. Men are taught to be strong, but they are never taught how to remain emotionally alive while being strong. They are taught to provide, but they are never taught how to protect their inner identity while providing. They are taught to commit, but they are never taught how to maintain their sense of self inside commitment. So they adapt the only way they know how. They suppress, they endure, they disconnect, and over time they become strangers to themselves. The tragedy is not that they are married. The tragedy is that they feel emotionally alone inside that marriage, because emotional connection is not automatic. It does not sustain itself. It requires presence. It requires mutual recognition. It requires continued respect. And respect cannot exist without individuality, without autonomy, without the man remaining psychologically whole. When a man abandons himself completely for the sake of stability, he may gain peace externally, but he loses aliveness internally. And eventually this loss becomes unbearable, not dramatically, but quietly. A slow, persistent feeling that something essential is missing. Some men cope by distracting themselves. Work, entertainment, endless scrolling, anything to avoid confronting the emptiness. Others cope by becoming emotionally distant. They stop expecting connection. They accept emotional isolation as normal. And some men eventually reach a breaking point, not because they are weak, but because they can no longer tolerate existing without feeling alive. The solution is not escape. The solution is awareness. Because the moment a man becomes aware of his own psychological disappearance is the moment he can begin reclaiming himself, not by abandoning his responsibilities, but by reconnecting with his identity beyond his roles, by remembering that he is not just what he provides, he is not just what he stabilizes. He is a conscious being with emotional depth, with psychological needs, with an inner world that deserves recognition. The most dangerous thing a man can become is invisible to himself, because once he stops recognizing himself, the world follows. But the most powerful thing a man can do is remain internally connected to who he is, to maintain his autonomy, his individuality, his inner strength that does not depend on external validation. Because loneliness is not defeated by proximity, loneliness is defeated by presence, and presence begins within. When a man reconnects with himself, he stops being psychologically dependent on external recognition to feel whole. He becomes grounded. He becomes stable in a deeper way, not just externally, but internally. And something changes when a man regains this internal connection. His energy changes. His presence changes. He stops seeking validation. He stops chasing emotional approval. He exists from a place of internal certainty. And this internal certainty transforms how the world responds to him. Because the truth is, the loneliest men are not single. They are the men who abandon themselves in order to maintain everything else. And the moment a man stops abandoning himself is the moment he stops being lonely, even if nothing externally changes, because he is no longer disconnected from the only person he truly needs to remain connected to, himself. And this is the quiet awakening that changes everything, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. The moment he realizes he was never truly alone, he was only disconnected, and reconnection was always within his reach.